So a few weeks ago, I talked about a Roblox war game that would slowly get disturbing, and a lot of you seem to like it, so I figured I'd talk more about Roblox war games that look normal at first, but then under the surface hold something dark. Yeah, I feel like the Roblox game Shell Shock showcases that feeling of the true horrors of war really well. Yeah, like when you join the game, everybody's cheering for you, your character looks extremely happy to be going to war, there's a huge sign that says good luck heroes, but what we don't know is that over time, this happiness is slowly going to go away. Yeah, if you look at the top, it says 3rd of August, 1914. And yeah, there's our first day enlisting in the military. We're gonna go ahead and hop on the train, and then we're off to war. And yeah, being in here, it all seems very cool. The character looks genuinely happy to be here. You can see some of the other characters here writing to their loved ones. This soldier's reading the newspaper. The cows are all happy. It's a beautiful greenery. Everything seems great. But as we see in the text up there, it says to stay in the trench and wait for an attack. Yeah, little do we know what's actually about to happen here as soon as the first sounds of war strike. The drums of war are heard, and suddenly our character is looking a lot more nervous. Not only that, but even our fellow comrades here are also nervous. And then suddenly the bombs drop. And just like that, it's time for war. Yeah, so this all takes place in World War I. This is French versus Germany, and what makes this game truly fascinating are the reactions that the soldiers are making. Like throughout the battle, they may seem tough at first, but the second they get shot, they turn to have fear in their eyes. And what's more is that even upon death, that's when we can see that most of these soldiers aren't just cold-blooded killers, they're actually just real people. People with friends and families who don't actually want to be there. And things only get worse as time progresses, because now it's the year 1915, our character looks more serious, as well as some of these other characters here. They've now had their fair share of war, they've gotten more used to it, but they no longer have that smile that they first had when they first entered. Because as you could see, there's a lot of corpses just hanging around the area, and then the sounds of battle happen, and our character is suddenly reminded of that first battle. Bombs are exploding nearby. The greenery is starting to lose its color, and yeah, this only gets worse and worse. We're gonna fast forward a bit. Now we're in the year 1916. Our character is now hungry, thirsty, and just so badly wants to go home. Yeah, compare this face to day one, where they thought going to war would be so cool, you know, being seen as a hero. But then again, once those sounds of battles are heard, that shell shock in their eyes ignite, and it's time for war again. And this cycle just keeps progressing, because then the next wave, our character is now injured, dirtied, his army friends are terrified and want to go home. Everybody is pretty much badly injured. Like, remember when the friends were writing messages to their loved ones? Yeah, that's not really happening anymore. These soldiers have given up on that. They have lost all emotion aside from just hearing the cruelties of war. But again, that same reaction we saw on day one remains as soon as the bombs are heard. The year is now 1917. Our soldier is now very hungry and thirsty. And in this game, the only way to get food in the last battles is by eating rats in those holes nearby. Now we're in the year 1918. This is the last battle in the game. This is the one where if we win, we get to go home. But will our families still remember us when we finally make it back? Because something that this game does well is how it replicates the true horrors of war. Like in the beginning of the game, it would show soldiers dead, but throughout it, it only becomes more insane. Now we actually see bones of our fallen comrades. We see limbs all throughout the battlefield. And then finally, when we go home, we get the message, the battle is over, thank you for your service. But then when you finally return home, nobody's waiting for you. Instead, you get some signs saying, factory closed. Almost every single worker died in the war. The only ones who are left are your comrades, which all say something along the lines of, where is everyone? Yeah, and now the reason why this game is called Shell Shock is because Shell Shock is known as post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, but Shell Shock is more specifically involved with the traumas that occurred during war, in this case World War I. And yeah, there's actually a lot of pictures of soldiers who show example of shell shock, where yeah, just by those eyes, you could see that they clearly went through something extremely tragic. And now I know the game takes place in trenches, and that's where a lot of the warfares occurred. I did get curious and wondered how a lot of the trenches from World War I look like now. Like I did see this image here, which I think it's actually insane how the markings still remain all these years later. Most of these places are now livable, but unfortunately unfortunately, there are some places that are still at risk due to shells, bombs, or mines left over from World War I. Not only that, but there could be a lot of soil contamination in some of these more heavily used terrain. But now another game that showcases the terror of war is this one called Oppenheimer Atomic Bomb Survival. And yeah, it says here, survive the first ever atomic weapon detonation, the 1945 Trinity nuclear test. And yeah, for some reason we've got Barbie in here too. But yeah, we can go ahead and check it out. The thumbnail right there showed Oppenheimer, aka the person who invented the bomb that would later be used to destroy Hiroshima and Nagasaki in Japan. We'll talk about that more in a bit. But yeah, once you join the game, it seems like we're in some sort of testing facility here. We've got 2 minutes till the bomb detonates, and it says here, warning, 700 meters from ground zero, mild radiological risk. Okay, yeah, so there is some radiation poisoning. There's a ton of houses that are gonna get destroyed here. Let's just go ahead and wait to see what happens here. All right, here we go. We've got 5 seconds left. What's gonna happen when the bombs go off? Oh yeah, just like that, here we go. So yeah, here's the mushroom cloud. We've got the impact going on. Instantly, houses are being destroyed. Ow! Whoa. So yeah, I think if I pass this, that's when the radiation actually starts. Okay, yeah, you can see the radiation counter going up. So yeah, we're just gonna stay away from that actually. But yeah, that's actually insane. But what's even more insane is that there's a couple of games that show the bombing of Hiroshima. Like this one here that's called Survive Hiroshima. So we'll go ahead and check it out. If you don't know, on August 6th of 1945, during World War II, the United States would end up bombing Hiroshima, destroying many buildings and killing anywhere between 70,000 to 80,000 people instantly. But then by the end of 1945, the death toll would rise to 140,000. Yeah, that's right. A lot of these civilians that were in this town would end up just dying, not knowing what was to come because it happened so quickly. Now, why would the United States do this? Well, at this point, Germany had already surrendered back in May of 1945, but it was already August 6th, and Japan was showing no clear signs of surrendering, even despite many heavy losses and destroyed cities. They were wanting to go all out. And so to avoid a full-scale invasion from Japan, the United States decided to drop the bomb on Hiroshima to show the strength not only to Japan, but to the Soviet Union. Though despite this bombing, Japan's government did not immediately surrender, and many of the military leaders believed that the United States only had one bomb, so they were still ready to fight. And so that's when the United States dropped another bomb on Nagasaki 3 days later. Yet when the bomb itself was dropped, 40,000 people would die instantly, but by the end of 1945, the death toll had risen to around 70,000 to 80,000, many dying from burns, injuries, and radiation sicknesses. Yet something that's insane to me are the Hiroshima shadows, aka the human shadow of death, in which these shadows would showcase the people in their last moments right before the bomb exploded. All were unaware of what was to happen to them. Now, as for Oppenheimer, you know that first game that we played? Yeah, he's known to be the father of the atomic bomb. After the bombing of the first atomic bomb, he would famously say this:
"Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds."
A chilling line that would probably haunt him for the rest of his life. D-Day. So D-Day, aka the Normandy invasion, is probably the most famous battle of World War II. So yeah, this battle occurred on June 6th of 1944, and the plan was simple: have the Allied forces storm the beach to liberate Western Europe from German forces. Yeah, by the end of the first day, 156,000 Allied troops would end up landing on the beaches, and now this invasion was massive. There was 5,000 ships, 11,000 aircrafts, and thousands upon thousands of vehicles. And I feel like this Roblox game does showcase somewhat of the horrors of war, because if you're playing on the Allied forces, you start up on the ships and then make your way to a boat and then storm the beaches. But what I found interesting was that the soldiers around you all looked serious, like if they've been in war before. Only if you looked underneath the helmet, you could realize that that wasn't a fierce face they were making, that's a face of fear. They are terrified to be here, which is typically how war ended up being. Because again, many of these soldiers were around the ages of 18 to 20 years old, like just out of college. The average age was around 26 years old. And on D-Day itself, June 6, 1944, there would be a total of 4,400 soldiers killed on the Allied side. Overall in total though, there'd be an estimate between 10,000 to 15,000 deaths. But yeah, because of all these soldiers' bravery, it would be the turning point of World War II. CENTAURA. Now this is another great war game that I would put up there right next to Shell Shock. I've talked a lot lot about it before, but something that I find insane are the levels of detail of capturing that horror feeling. Like all throughout the battles, you can just hear your fellow comrades screaming in pain or in fear the entire time. Yeah, and what's insane is that if you set vehicles on fire, you can even hear the people inside it screaming. Not only that, but this game doesn't just take place in the trenches where there's no civilians. Sometimes it takes place in towns where, yeah, there's civilians all around pleading for their lives.
No, please, no.
Yeah, this girl right here has some pretty dark lore that I'm not going to go over in this video, but the creators ended up killing her in a pretty terrifying way. Well, what are your favorite Roblox war games? Let me know in the comments down below. Don't forget to subscribe. Goodbye.